So as you guys know, in maths, we always like to simplify everything, okay? So we always want everything written in the simplest form possible. And that also applies with square roots. So what we also want you guys to do is know how to simplify them. Now, we do this through factorizing, okay? Now, we're going to talk about this, but as with what we talked about a couple of lessons ago, I want you to always start by writing that list of factors down. Okay, the list of squares down, because this will really help you with this topic in particular. Okay, so the first thing you should always do when you need to simplify your square roots or on any sort of exercise where you have these is write your list of squares. So we know 1 squared is 1, 2, not going to leave gaps otherwise they won't fit, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169, 14 squared is 196, and 15 squared is 225. Okay, these are going to be useful when you're doing this. All right. Now, what we do when we simplify square roots is we start by factorizing, and we're going to talk again about what factorizing means. So factorizing means to write a number, and this can also be a term or an expression. Okay, it's not just a number, but I'm not going to sit there and write this out every time. So factorizing means to write a number as the product of 2 or more numbers. Okay, and again, that can be factors, expressions or terms, whatever. All right, so factorizing means that we write a number as the product of 2 or more numbers. Now, the word product means something times something. Okay, so as an example, and we used this example before, if we had 12 and we wanted to write it as a product of its factors, we could have 6 times 2, we could have 3 times 4, and we could have 1 times 12. Okay, these are all factors. All right, don't forget we do also have the negative factors, but at the moment that's not what I'm worried about. Okay, and this is what we actually call factorizing. Okay, so writing it like this is called factorizing. The numbers themselves are the factors, and the process of writing it as its factors is called factorizing. Okay, now with square roots, we want to simplify them as much as possible. So with square roots, we want to simplify as much as possible. So we look for the highest factor that's a square root. Okay, what that means is we are looking for a factor that appears on our list. We want to choose one of these beautiful numbers down here, and that is what we're going to use as our factors when we factorize. Now that still probably doesn't make a huge amount of sense to you at the moment, so we're going to do an example here. All right, we'll use the example of 12. Okay, so if we had the square root of 12, this is our example. Now, we've already got our list of factors for 12 here. We've got 6, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 12. We want the highest factor, so we said here the highest factor that is a square root. okay, or that has a square root, it shouldn't be is, never mind that, okay, that has a square root. All right, so of 6, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 12, only one of them is actually, well, two of them are actually a square number, but one is pretty useless as far as we're concerned here, and that's 4, okay, because 4 is the same as 2 squared. Okay, so we're going to use that one. Now 12, therefore, can be written as, and we know that that's 3 times 4, okay, so the square root of 12 is the square root of 3 times 4. Now we're going to use what we did last lesson, and we're going to go backwards. So last lesson we said if we have the square root of a times the square root of b, then we have the square root of a times b. Okay, and normally you look at it going this way. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go back the other way. So in this case, we have a square root of a times b, and in this case a is 3 and b is 4, and we want to write it separately. Okay, so we're going from this side over here, whoops, we're going from this side here, and we want to turn it into the other side, the a times b. All right, so 3 times 4 is the same as the square root of 3 times the square root of 4. Okay, we've gone backwards. Now, the square root of 4 we have an answer to. We know what the answer to this is. We know that that's 2. Okay, so instead of writing square root of 4, we're going to write 2, and then root 3 we can't do anything with, so it stays like this. So this means the square root of 12 is the same as 2 times the square root of 3. Okay, and that's a much better form of our root. Usually it means we can then do more things with it. Okay, so you might have something else that also simplifies to a root 3, and then you can bring your like terms together. So I want to do a few more examples of numbers like this. All right, let's try the square root of 75. Okay, now 75, if we think about 75 as something times something, and we want one of those numbers to be on our list here. Now hopefully you've all seen that 25 is a factor of 75. Okay, so we're going to use that one. So 75 is the same as 3 times 25. Okay, so we can now write that as the square root of 3 times the square root of 25. Okay, square root of 25 is something we can simplify. That becomes 5. So we have 5 times the square root of 3. Okay, these are pretty nice. It just takes a little bit of practice, and as I said, it's pretty important that you have your list because it'll make it easier for you to look for what you're going to factorize into. All right, one last example, and this is an example that we see quite often, and it's a really easy start if you start with this one, if you have this one. So let's do the square root of 1800. Okay, this one looks super high. All right, it's quite a big number. That makes it a little bit scary maybe. Okay, except there's a really nice number on our list. Okay, and it will make it a lot easier. And that really nice number here is 10 squared is 100. Okay, so as soon as you see one that has a double zero on the end, you know that you can divide it by 100. And that means that we have the same thing as the square root of 18 times 100. Okay, and this is now much nicer. All right, the square root of 18 times the square root of 100. Okay, and we know that the square root of 100 is 10. So we have 10 times the square root of 18. Now the important thing here is that we're actually not finished, because if you have a look at the number 18 here, that is still something that has a square factor. Okay, so if we look at our factor list, one of these numbers can also be a factor of 18. Okay, and that number is 9. 9 is a factor of 18. So we're going to use that. Okay, so let's go back down to here. So we have here 10 times the square root of 9 times 2. Okay, so we have 10 times the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. Okay, square root of 2 we can't do, but we know that the square root of 9 is 3. So we have 10 times 3 root 2, and 10 times 3 is just 30. So we have 30 root 2. And as I said, the reason we do this is because then this quite often gives us like terms that we can do more with, okay? And these are much nicer and clearer if you can see them as a root of 2 or 3. So we try to get these as low as possible. Okay, so that is simplifying by factorizing, and hopefully that makes it a lot clearer for you and much easier for you to do yourself.